Hello, St. Elmo students, and welcome to Stay at Home Storytime. Today I have a biography, and you guys know how much I like biographies. Remember, a biography is a book about a real person, real information about a real person, and our biography today is called Strong as Sandow. How Eugene Sandow became the strongest man on earth. And it's written and illustrated by one of our favorites, local Austin author and illustrator Don Tate. Some of you 4th and 5th graders might remember when he came to visit our school a few years ago. Strong as Sandow by Don Tate. In his day, Eugene Sandow was known as the strongest man on earth. He could break metal chains by expanding his broad chest. He could hoist a grand piano over his head. He boasted that he once wrestled a 500-pound lion. No doubt, Eugene Sandow was the strongest of all strongmen, but he wasn't always strong. The delicate days. Königsberg, Prussia, 1867 to 1885, we think. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to show you a map of Europe. There's several places in our story that are mentioned. The first one, Königsberg, Prussia. Here's our map of Europe. And here is where Prussia was. Prussia as a country doesn't actually exist anymore. It's now part of Russia. But that's where it is on our map of Europe. His birth name was Friedrich Wilhelm Müller. As a boy, he loved athletics, but playing sports required a strong, healthy body. Friedrich's arms were skinny, and his legs were as frail as twigs. He looked downright feeble. Often, he was too sick to play. Watching his friends out the window. But Friedrich survived. His spirit was strong. He played sports and he excelled in school. As a reward for his high honors, his father took him on a trip to Italy. They visited the famous art galleries of Rome. Look there, Friedrich and his father. And look at all the statues in the museums. Friedrich was awestruck by the statues of ancient athletes. Their muscles looked so powerful. If only he could look like a Roman gladiator. How is it that these men are so strong, Father? Friedrich asked. The heroes of old, his father said, were ever active, ever exercising their bodies. Exercise, that was it. To make his body stronger, Friedrich would need to push himself even harder. When he returned home, he ran longer and jumped higher. He exercised like never before. But his 10-year-old body wasn't ready to bloom just yet. To Friedrich's despair, it remained weak and puny. Poor Friedrich. Friedrich's focus on athletics annoyed his father. After all, exercise might be good for the body, but what about the mind? He wanted his son to devote more time to finding a career. He sent Friedrich, now in his late teens, away to study at a university. At school, Friedrich learned about anatomy, bones, muscles, the human form, but he longed to do something more physically active. Look at Friedrich. Do you see what he's looking at? Strong and stronger. Prussia to Belgium. 1885, maybe, to 1887. One day, a traveling circus rolled into town. Friedrich snuck away from school to watch. He was starstruck by the performers. Tumblers, wrestlers, acrobats, strongmen. The lure was simply too much to resist. Friedrich left the university and joined the circus. He became an acrobat. Life as an acrobat was physically demanding. Friedrich tumbled and bent and balanced. He flipped and flopped and stood on his hands. Soon he began to notice a change in his body. His muscles were getting bigger and stronger. So he left his home of Prussia and went to Belgium. Let's look at our map again. Here's our map. See, right here was his home of Prussia, and now he's over here in Belgium. See Belgium? Right there between France and Germany is the country of Belgium. That's where he is now. But the circus turned out to be a ragtag operation. It ran out of money, and Friedrich lost the job he so adored. To support himself, Friedrich found work as a model for an art class for art students. His burly, ever-growing physique was the perfect reference for their paintings and sculptures. Through their art, Friedrich became the gladiator he had dreamed of being as a child. Look at all the artists painting pictures of Friedrich. One of the artists introduced Friedrich to Professor Attila, a professional strongman. The professor gave Friedrich a job at his gym and offered to teach him bodybuilding. "Attend to my instructions," the professor said, "and I shall be able to make you the strongest man in the world." The professor made Friedrich lift heavier weights. The metal barbells were so heavy Friedrich's muscles quivered, but he didn't complain. The heavier the weights, the bigger his muscles grew. Friedrich's knowledge about the strongman business grew too. He learned about showmanship, costumes, and stage presence. By the time he was 20 years old, Friedrich was a bona fide professional strongman. He even changed his name. Friedrich Müller would be known forever after as Eugene Sandow. So, strongman. The Big Challenge, London, 1889. All right, so let's look at our map again. Here we are. We were in Belgium, and now we're in London, over here in England. We've gone from Belgium to London. The Big Challenge, London, 1889. Samson and Cyclops were the greatest professional strongmen of their time. They were brawny. They were brutes. They were loud-mouthed, muscle-bound lunks. Samson and Cyclops lifted horses and elephants as though they were as light as feathers. Each night after their act in London, they roared out a challenge to the audience. They dared anyone to try to defeat them in a competition of strength. But who would accept such a foolish challenge? Eugene Sandow. That's who. Eugene jumped on stage. Dressed in a fine suit, he sauntered along confidently until he tripped over a barbell and almost fell on his face. Everyone laughed, Samson and Cyclops hardest of all. But Eugene had a plan. With one swoop of his powerful arm, he ripped off his suit all at once. The audience gasped at the sight of his mighty muscles. The competition began. Samson and Cyclops jerked pound after pound of incredibly heavy weights above their heads. But each time, Eugene effortlessly met their challenge. Sometimes he lifted more. Samson raged. Cyclops fumed. At last, Eugene was declared the winner. Look at Samson and Cyclops. They're not happy. Look at Eugene. He won. Victory and beyond. London to America, 1890 to 1894. Victory over the great Samson and Cyclops made Eugene famous. He performed in music halls all over England, Scotland, and Ireland. It wasn't long before fame beckoned him overseas to the United States. First, he performed at a casino in New York City, then at a theater in Boston. His popularity exploded when he performed at the Chicago World's Fair. Crowds poured into the theater to see the modern Hercules. Can you see where he is in this picture? He's arriving in New York. Do you know what that is right there? That's the Statue of Liberty in the harbor at New York City. When the curtain rose, Eugene appeared on stage. He was dusted head to toe with white powder, which made him look like a living, breathing marble statue. When he lifted a heavy barbell over his head, some people in the audience gasped. Others fainted. Look, there's someone fainting. Truth be told, though, no one really cared about how much weight Eugene could lift. They were in awe of his physique. His chiseled muscles were things of beauty, like fine works of art. After the show in Chicago, Eugene became one of the most famous stars in America. As Eugene went on to tell it, his greatest moment happened one evening in San Francisco. The event of the century packed hordes of spectators into a huge circus-like tent. Inside, a massive lion roared and people shrieked, but Eugene was all confidence and smiles. When Eugene entered the cage and flexed his hefty muscles, the king of beasts cowered down, tame as a kitty. Eugene scooped up the lion and paraded him around the stage. The lion wore mittens, and some people thought he looked drugged. Was it all a trick? A showman's illusion? Eugene Sandow would never let on. The so-called fight lasted just a few minutes, and the strongman was declared the winner. Home. America to London, 1898 to 1901. Eugene continued to travel, but over time the gruesome schedule proved too much even for him. He became tired and sickly. He lost weight. His once powerful muscles seemed to fade away. His body needed rest, and so did his mind. Eugene said goodbye to America and returned home to Britain. For months, Eugene rested. While his body recovered, his brain searched for ways to continue his career. He opened a gym. He published books and magazines promoting bodybuilding and nutritious eating. He designed his own equipment and techniques for strengthening muscles. Look here, some of the things he designed. In 1901, Eugene launched the Great Competition, the first organized bodybuilding contest. Strongmen traveled from all over the country to compete at the Royal Albert Hall in London. But Eugene wasn't interested in rewarding only big muscular physiques. He considered a man's overall health and physical development too. First, the men performed athletic displays, wrestling, gymnastics, even fencing. Do you know what fencing is? It's kind of like sword fighting. Then, after several rounds of posing, a winner was chosen. He received a cash prize and a gold-plated statue of none other than Eugene himself. Look, there's the statue. And here are the competitors trying to win the bodybuilding contest. On the night of the great competition, Eugene Sandow performed too. He must have flexed a smile as broad as his biceps. After all, the once frail child that was now known as the strongest man on earth after all, the once frail child was now known as the strongest man on earth. And it seemed that every man on earth, and every woman and child too, was now devoting more attention to their own health. Everyone wanted to become as strong as Sandow. That is the end of our story, but there's a lot at the end of the book. I think I'm going to make a second video reading some of the stuff at the end of the book, but I wanted to show you, here's a real life photograph of Eugene Sandow, and our good friend, author, and illustrator Don Tate. Here is a picture of him as a young man. Can you guess why he got interested in writing this biography? There's Don Tate. I hope you enjoyed our book. I hope you will also find the lessons from Coach Barnes this week. She is posting lessons all about strength, and hopefully you can be as strong as Sandow. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time on Stay at Home Storytime.